Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero. Our guest today is Paul Dimech. He is a paellero, or a paestro. He makes paella. Beautiful, festive, vibrant, colorful, fulfilling paella. His operation is called Paul's Paella, and he'll bring it to you, and your party will be terrific. Sometimes we do shows with our folks. We've been fortunate to make some pretty fascinating friends, and Paul and Pete go back well over a decade. Paul graduated from the Air Force Academy, and in addition to the strategic stuff, what they have in common is an eccentricity that comes from a mix of wit, depth, curiosity, and candor. Paul is also Maltese, which is a rich culture, not discussed enough if you ask me. I'm going to throw back to my friend Steve Weldon. He was my neighbor growing up. He's Maltese and really cool. Taught me a lot about the area, taught me a lot about Malta. And like I said, not discussed enough if you ask me. Paul is also a Renaissance man, a deep appreciator of old world traditions, who by contrast has a spectacular grasp of Instagram. You should follow him. I want to plug his website too, paulspaellas.com, where you will see some gorgeous food in wonderful locations. This episode was recorded in Paul's hot tub. I like to call it Peter, Paul, and Marinade. There were also lots of beers consumed during the recording. If you dig what we're doing, please subscribe on YouTube and turn on those notifications, or give us those 5 stars in iTunes and drop a review on us. Those things really help the show get profiled and noticed, and we sure would appreciate you for it. Meanwhile, here's our homeboy and our special guest today from Paul's Paella. Don't forget to follow him on Instagram and check out his website, paulspaellas.com. Paul Dimech.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Will you got me a beer since we're doing this?
Absolutely.
Take 2?
Hola, this is Paul of Paul's Paellas, and this is a very wet Break It Down show.
And now, the Break It Down show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yeah, we're doing our inaugural hot tub recording session. So we have a hot tub and we have cervezas. So
Cervezas, there you go.
Cheers.
So, the Jets just came on, bud.
Yeah, the hot tub is going to roar up every now and then to make sure we're nice and warm.
Yeah.
And this is one of the best things about podcasting is, 1, you get to do it in a hot tub. 2, you get to do it with your friends. And 3, this is technically, because you're an intel officer, this is a spy versus spy episode. So we'll talk a little bit of intel stuff and let the audience kind of understand what guys do. Because, look, we see... we see James Bond and we see Jason Bourne and those guys, but the reality is there's a lot of people involved in collection, and there's really not really any Jason Bournes, but there are a lot of folks like you and I that go out and do things. When I talk about intel, I characterize it as there's 3 basic jobs. There's like the planners who do the operations and figure out where we need to be and how to provision the person who's out front. There's the person who's out front, and that person typically has great people skills. And then there's the analysts who help us, and they kind of each one feeds the other. So where would you say your skills lie?
Oh, I think definitely on the analytical side.
Mm-hmm.
So it's...
capable of going out and talking, certainly capable of planning, but everybody has a specialty.
Oh, yeah, that's how we met with the Human Terrain Systems as contractors. Yeah, I love and have the knack to being able to go out in just about any culture.
Right.
Provided you give me a proper translator.
Yeah.
And I can get stuff and I can get information and meld in with that. But what I really like the most is the analytical side. Once you get all that data, so what? I just can't slap all those different reports on some commander's desk and expect him to get there. I have to be able to look at it and say, well, what's it mean?
Yeah.
And I love that aspect, really.
Well, and like me on the ground, sure, I can do analysis, but my job is collection. I need to figure out what I'm doing and kind of task myself out. So I have to have some analysis, but I can't worry about what anybody else is doing. And for me, I worked with the commander a lot to get that higher vision so I could more tune. But that was very unique to have. And you know how this goes. Like the commander has an intel shot, but typically they don't have much influence directly. Because of my position and because of my capability, I was able to have that guy's ear and have them say a little more of this, a little less that.
Yeah. And the fascinating thing, what you were basically doing is what collectors and intel in general is supposed to be doing. You think about it, we're not a whole lot of different than Fox News or CNN, MSNBC. We're going out there and getting data. With the exception, they're trying to get things that's going to get people's attention and they're going to watch. Entertainment, essentially.
Right.
We are collecting specific information for a specific purpose, and that is to fulfill the commander's objectives, guidance, and intent. So when you have the commander's ear, and he's telling you what he wants to get, you go out and get it. That's the difference between intel and news.
Well, and I'll tell you, you're 100% right about this because we had Shelley Smith, who is a lifelong reporter for ESPN. She's won Emmys. She's a fantastic reporter. Everybody knows who she is. All you got to do is see her face if you don't know her name. And she said, my job is I have access to the sidelines. Access, that's an intel word. Mm-hmm. And my job is to tell you the story that nobody else can tell you. My job is to get to something. And so, and she
But that's hugely different.
Right.
You know?
But that is her job, is to go out and find out.
No, I gotcha.
Yeah.
She's got to get people watching a program so they can sell those commercials, whatever. Mm-hmm. I got to get a commander informed so he can make a decision and not make a fool of himself because they have all the information. So that's huge.
Yeah. And then the other thing she said, and I thought this really resonated well with what, and no one ever taught us this, but it applies to at least what I do as far in terms of my specific kind of collection, is she was one of the main people that broke the Magic Johnson age story. And Magic wasn't talking because why would he talk?
Yeah.
She's like, well, we don't need Magic for this story. We need everybody else around him to tell us the story. And so you could take all of those points of data, all of those conversations, and put together a pretty good, and this is what you do.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Pete, go talk to 10 of Magic's friends, and then we'll figure out what this means.
Yeah.
So you're right. News.
She's doing the same thing.
Right.
It's just the objective is different.
For sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's if there wasn't an audience for information on Magic Johnson, she'd be wasting her time. She should be fired.
Right.
Of course, there was
Yeah.
because of the entertainment value, but it's different.
Yeah, it is different. And I would you say that our line of work is more dangerous?
Oh hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know that where we've been. I mean, I mean, it's not easy being an in the field reporter too.
Yeah, right.
But most of our time when we're not back at the headquarters, you know, doing the analysis, I mean, there's someone collecting right there front lines typically.
I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to ask you a slightly political question. Yeah. I've talked openly about Pete Buttigieg, and I'm pretty critical of his use of his military career because folks that don't go outside the wire, folks with one deployment, typically in our world, mostly shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's a code that we all hear and see when you start talking about it. So when you say, and this is not defense of Donald Trump, you always have to say that, but Donald Trump was planning season 7 of The Apprentice or whatever Mr. Buttigieg says while I was packing my bags for Afghanistan. That's bad form in our world.
It is. Hey, I am not going to disparage anyone's service, and I will not. His was honorable service, and he's a very impressive guy. I mean, and he was an impressive officer, too.
Yeah.
But let's understand something. He was a junior officer,
right?
And he wasn't commanding troops in the field,
right?
Okay. He wasn't even in harm's way all that often.
Yeah.
He did serve, and as you know, less than 1% of Americans do serve, and I got my beer in my hand, and I'll salute him right now with you.
Absolutely.
God bless him in the service.
Hell yeah.
But to use that as a qualification to be commander-in-chief, quite frankly, I think someone who's got executive or CEO experience is far more qualified than someone who's been a junior officer, especially a non-combat junior officer.
And then another thing that's hard to know if you're not in the military and completely unfair to you and your Air Force peers, same thing with the Navy, is that, you know, Marines and Armies get ground commands in combat. For the most part, it's pretty rare for a Navy or an Air Force person to get a combatant command.
Oh, you're absolutely correct.
If ever.
Yeah. You know, a good example of that, we were very proud to say we are managers.
Right.
This is not good management. Of course, any Army officer has the kiss of death. You don't manage, you lead.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, good on you. But yeah, that's what we do. You know, there's probably some Air Force old salts out there, fellow classmates are probably going to piss me off right now. So, but I'm pissing them off. But it's true.
So, okay, so this is the context I want to bring in now, because an Air Force and a Navy officer typically won't have a combatant command on the ground because it's not your guys' job.
No, we fly.
Yeah, you fly, you deliver things,
Yeah.
you know that's what you guys and vital, of course.
Yeah, and we're different too. And it's that our actual foot troop, the guy that does the fighting, is an officer in a plane typically. You know,
exactly.
Not so much anymore with UAVs. We're actually training more people to fly drones than we are to actually fly aircraft.
Let me get this question out because I want to understand what your answer is on this. In the Army, in the Marines, if you are among the elite in your peers, you get a combat command. Like they make sure that happens because they see there's energy in your career.
Of course.
What does that look like in the Air Force?
Oh wow. Now things are changing. Okay, the biggest determinant during my time. Now I retired in 2007.
Right.
Whether or not you're going to get commands or not is whether or not you were rated. If you spent time not only flying but actually leading a squadron, a group,
right,
or a larger or air wing, you know, it was it was cockpit. You know,
so,
your association with it. That's changing.
Right.
It's changed.
Yeah.
You know.
And obviously this is not the same thing as what you know, Mayor Pete has had because he not a pilot. He's like us. He's an intel guy.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? And obviously we're still kind of comparing, you know, apples and oranges a little bit, but what does that look like for an intel officer in the Air Force? Like if you are someone who's got a career has a lot of inertia and you're really standing out amongst your peers, you're going to be rated as promoted immediately.
Yeah.
What does that person do when they go to Afghanistan? Are they the commander's driver, or what's their job going to be?
Well, I got me kind of lost me.
Well, so Pete Buttigieg was, you know, a driver for his commander.
Yeah.
Is that a job that someone in the Air Force would get if they were a standout officer?
No, you'd be an XO or you know, an aide de camp for a general, of course. Driver, I don't know the Army.
Yeah.
But driver's not going anywhere. There's nothing real special about that. So
maybe there's some kind of special circumstance.
And let's be honest, I don't want to belittle the guy's service, you know?
Right.
But I have to, as most military guys would be, when he's actually talking about what he has done, I said, this makes him qualified to be commander-in-chief. Nah, I'm sorry, but someone who runs a business with a few hundred people and has got really more commander-in-chief experience than you do. Yeah. Okay, it's different. So,
yeah, and again, I agree with you. I don't want to disparage his service. It's commendable. He volunteered.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's where it should stop.
Yeah.
You know,
except for he brings it in as a discriminator.
I know. And that's going to work for a lot of people. It's not going to work for a lot of people.
This is why I want to provide the
them,
context. Because we have to understand why guys like us are like, yeah, of course. Look, I would never have said a word about his service except for he used it to put himself above somebody else.
First time I saw it, it kind of made my skin crawl a bit. It was like, hey, cool, dude. Service, great, got it.
Right.
But we know why you're using your service, and you're going to feed it to people who don't quite understand what you actually. Yes, you're an officer. That's special. You could read, write, and you're a particularly smart officer.
Very
that
smart.
guy was exceedingly smart. I would say among all the Democrats running him, that's the smartest guy in the boat.
Quite likely.
Yeah. So
in terms of brain power,
yeah. But for those of us who have served, okay, guy. I'm sorry. Thank you for your service, that is not what's going to make you president. In my eyes. But
okay, so let's get away from the presidential stuff. I just wanted to provide some context because I have had a lot of questions about that. But let's get back into your products. When we worked together, one of the things I loved about you was you had this political cartoon product.
Yeah, something very different. Yeah, I saw some of my interpreters who were Iraqis, American citizens, but former Iraqis, and they were going over some political satire, cartoons. And kind of the light bulb came on, and it was kind of, these things, of course, are all propaganda, and you really can't get facts out of so much. They kind of dwell on some particular issue of the day and go with it and draw out humor. But the people who write those things, this is the same thing as in the States, they know their audience. They know what they believe and what they want to hear. And if you know the political bent of the person doing the cartoon, or which the political bent of the publication it's going to go in, or the audience it's focusing, it's telling you if not what they believe, what they want to believe, and what they find humorous. And that's something easy to analyze, really. and it's entertaining too. So people actually read it. So every few weeks, we'd put together a couple dozen of those things, slap them together in a report, a cartoon with the actual caption I was associated with the cartoon, and then a little bit of, a few sentences of analysis of why they said this at this particular time. And I put that together, and I was told, they were fairly popular, but I was told those things used to get slapped around on Ordiano's desk whenever they came out. I was quite proud of that.
Well, it was good reading.
So,
I mean, I read it. I looked forward to it.
Yeah.
Another product that was quite commonly read was that colonel who was a partner with the Iraqis, an American colonel, and he would write exceptionally disparaging reports about the Iraqis, belittling their planning. Do you remember this? It actually made the New York Times. Paul has a mouthful of beer right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. it's a hot tub, man.
It's a hot tub.
Gotta take full advantage. We're in Southern California. Let's do it. Didn't dwell too much on, but I know of it. But I was glad to have guys like that. So
yeah, you need some candor, but his was not. Well, one, it was, and this will sound pretentious, but it was not becoming of an officer to put that out publicly. That's
you know what? I'm sorry. I forgot about the public aspect. Yes, it was totally unbecoming. That was not meant for me. We are not CNN. We're not here to entertain.
Right.
Give it to the decision maker, and that's his decision what to do with it.
Right.
Not yours. Okay.
And
that aspect was wrong.
It also wasn't.
I agree with what he was doing, though, but not public release. That was totally unproductive.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
And he was writing it for attention, which we all do. But he had the wrong
motivations.
Yeah.
Were not inspiring.
Right. Okay.
But it was good to have someone who was saying this shit's broken, okay, and then speaking that out. So, but
if he's wrong about
it, if he's wrong, he's wrong. But was he?
Well, here's the thing: is like one of the times 2 units were going to swap places, and he's like, all they're going to do is they decided they're just going to drive by each other on the road.
Yeah.
And so they did, and it worked. Those units moved. He hammered them for their lack of planning, and they're like, "Why do you plan?" It's Iraqis, right?
Again, let me caveat this.
Yeah.
I knew of the guy. I'm not nearly as well versed as you are.
Sure. Well, and
I will concede.
Well, no, I'm just saying that as he was talking about his partnering, he would laugh and make fun of their ability to plan.
No.
But he lacked the cultural knowledge to do it in a way that had any kind of acuity.
He wasn't doing it in the context it deserved.
Yeah.
And you're right. If he was doing this actually for self-aggrandizement, well, that's no longer an officer.
And it came across that way.
So,
maybe that wasn't his intention, but that was his.
If that's it, I'll be honest, I'm not as familiar with that. Maybe I should be if that's the case. If that actually was the case, no, that's totally unbecoming of an officer.
When you look back at your significant career, and it's a long one, because you retired, you also worked another, almost 10 years in service of the military. What are you most proud of?
My first 10 years, I started off as an East Asian specialist. I went, graduated from the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey. I was assigned to the Air Force Special Operations School, and they had this antiquated Asian orientation course. To tell you how bad it was, this was 1989. Well after Vietnam, and this was basically an Indochina course. Like, whoa, dudes, you need some updating. And I took that thing, and I hook and crook and a lot of travel, and the stuff I learned in grad school. I built that into a fairly extensive course that did all of Asia. I mean, East Asia, South Asia, and I would have individual tutorials on Central Asia. And that's still being taught today, that particular course. Yeah, that is all different because things have changed. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully there's not a guy in a hot tub in 10 years going, and they were still teaching a course from 1989.
Actually, I re-attended that course in 1997, still a long time ago, but long after I had left it. And a lot of my stuff was still there.
Well, that's fantastic.
So, yeah.
Same question, other side though, when you look back, what would you like to have back? Like what mistake, what question, what action did you take or not take that you think,
I was somewhat famous near the end there as the officer. If you did something that was somewhat unsavory, I was probably the guy who was going to go toe to toe with you and close the doors, so one can hear, kind of speak my mind. There was a couple times earlier on in my career I did not do that, and I wish I had. Nothing really earth shattering.
Right.
but I could have saved a few people a little bit of pain, and I really wasn't in a position to change anything. But that keeps coming up as something that bothers me that I didn't do that I should have,
When I think of Intel people, there's 3 basic skills that we bring to the table. And we might be proficient at all of them, and there's certain people that are like masters of all of them, but I'm a collector. I can go out, I can interact with people anywhere, and I'll figure out stuff that nobody else knows. There's also the puzzle maker, the analyst, and then there's like the operations person who can figure out how to get to the information. Where do we need to put Pete so he can find out what someone else needs to know to analyze it? Where would you say your strength lies?
I did all 3, of course.
Of course.
But I think my strength was in the analysis.
Okay.
And I think I got a better grasp of what analysis actually is. It's kind of funny. We really never taught it. We basically threw a lot of data at people and expect them to kind of work through. And after a while, maybe they had to figure out a way to come up with a good answer with the information I got. But I actually kind of studied what is analysis and had a good answer for it relatively early in my career. And I think I was fairly good at it.
There's something more than tools, though. Like, so just for like my friends who are listening, there's things like link analysis, there's time event charts, and you can start to put together patterns. But there is an intuition that comes from that. But it's really not intuition.
No, there is no intuition. You're picking up things. You don't realize you're doing it, but you're doing it. The classic example I give: your wife comes home. And something's different.
Yeah.
Something is different. Well, she just had her hair cut. You can't figure it out.
Yeah.
But something's different. That's what it is. A good analyst learns to get in tune with that, okay? He knows, so he gets that feeling. Something is there. I know it's there. Well, I can't prove it. I'm just being prepared to go on to the next story. No. Try to figure it out. Know yourself. What are you seeing?
When I collected, I didn't think about the analyst at all. That wasn't my job.
Yeah.
My job was to...
Get the data.
If it's something that's important, I'm going to hear about it from the commander. And so I focused on that. That is not a strength of a lot of collectors.
Yeah, unfortunately, I used to drill this into people. I built and taught a course, battle damage assessment. Everything... We're not CNN. We're not Fox News, okay? We're not trying to collect interesting information that people go, oh, wow, about, and then watch TV as people are financing commercials, right? We are trying to answer the commander's objective guidance based on his intent. If you don't know what the boss actually wants to know, and even what he needs to know and may not know it, if you're not in tune with that, you're spinning wheels. You're in the entertainment business, okay? And getting not paid nearly as enough, because I think Fox News and CNN pays more than what we were getting. So
and it's safer work. There is, I want to ask you this too, then, because you say that, and so this is again for my friends listening. When the commander says, "I'd like to know," or "I think," or "I want," if he says the word "I," everybody instantly perks up, grabs their pen, and starts writing because they all want to. That's the commander's intent.
Well,
most of us in the intel world don't give the commander what he needs because we can't prove that we have relevance because we're not sitting in their office. A guy like me, I have time, I can build a relationship. Most intel people are irrelevant to the commander.
Unfortunately.
But they don't think so.
Yeah. I think, because there has to be something else too.
Yeah.
You should be informing his decision. And I'll be honest, many times that commander is asking for information not to fulfill his objectives, his task.
Sure. Yeah.
He's looking for something. I know the general wants to know this.
Yes.
Okay. And I know the general does not want to know. I'll give you a case in point. I really got to water this one down. We detected the fact that some certain surface-to-air missiles in a certain part of the world had left that part of the world and were no longer a threat. And that commander did not want to know that because, of course, he wanted to justify his satellite coverage over that area, the assets he was getting. And for us telling him that, okay, we were denying him resources because he would have to report that, of course, and then he would lose those assets, right? And fortunately, I was not in command at that time. There was an 06, and that person, and I can't blame that individual. I won't identify as male or female. But kind of went, okay, I guess we're not reporting it. And boy, that pissed me off.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about being a crony. I mean, I didn't want to say that. But what relevance did we have at that point? That particular officer at that point said, sorry, sir, they're not freaking there. And I can't report otherwise or ignore it.
Right.
Okay, it's going, but
and there's different,
you know.
You're describing, and again, I'm trying to give context. You're describing a dance that we all have to
be honest,
do.
if that particular officer was listening, I'm not entirely sure. I know that information didn't get out. I think it was brief, but kept at a certain level. So if I just disparaged someone unfairly, I apologize.
Paul is very conscientious about this.
I was an officer, dude. I was an officer.
Yeah. So you are describing a dance, though. There's too much. There's too little. There's not enough. There's too much. All those things. And you cannot know that as a junior person. You have to learn. It's a dance. You have to learn it and how to not step on toes.
Yeah. There's never too much, though.
Okay.
There's never too much if you know what and how to categorize. If you know how to put it together. And that's something we got really good at near the end. There's always been a lot of information. The problem is, how do you put that stuff together in a coherent form that your audience can understand?
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
In a coherent form that your audience can understand. When I retired in 2007, actually, when I retired in 2014 as a contractor, certain aspects of what I was doing, we broke the code on that. But earlier on, man, it's just information on fire hose. It took seasoned folk, but also institutionally, there's some folks out there who have figured it out too.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Intel is a complicated business. You have to sell your product. You have to give the commander something they need to read.
Yeah.
How much of what you collected helped, do you think? Like, if you were to give a percentage, I know it's an impossible question.
Oh, good Lord. Some of that is hard to say because very often, with the exception of the very later stuff I did, a lot of the stuff I put together and got put into another product and went somewhere, and I don't know what the hell happened. Yeah. But I can tell you, some of my later products, even as a civilian, I would put together a product, and I one day leaned over and says, you know what? Based on what you just put together, we rounded up 40 people in this area of Afghanistan, So that varied based on where I was on the food chain, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of hard. The vast majority of the information really just kind of either contributes to something, corroborates something, or the fact that it's wrong tells you something. But it's hard to get that a percentage. It's a mere fraction.
As someone who's a master, and I'm going to call you that, and that's with all the respect in the world, because I actually know what you do.
Paellestro, because I make paella.
Maestro, we're going to get to paella in a second.
There we
here.
go. Mm-hmm.
What is the slot where every commander wants you? Is it a right-hand dude? Is it some guy who's at a desk just being left alone? Where would you put yourself? Like if you were Paul the general, where do you need Paul the analyst to be so that you're not causing a ruckus, but you are causing a ruckus?
I was actually always best. It was like, here's the problem. Here's where you can get the information. Figure that out.
Okay.
I was
so more of a researcher.
I was, and I did my collection.
Sure, of course.
I did stuff, and I did stuff on staff. And I led an intelligence team that taught intel at the Iraqi army around the country as a mobile training team. Yeah. But I think my greatest strength is, hey, this is the problem.
Yeah.
Here's your classified, unclassified, top secret, confidential computers, all different ones on different terminals. Give us what's going on here. That's always where I was best.
So many questions in my head right now. It's so great. I love this stuff.
We still got plenty of beer. Go for it.
Well, have me one, would you?
Yeah.
We'll take a pause. I'm empty.
All right. Oh, okay. You want one?
Yeah, I'll take one.
I got you.
So I'm living on the edge right now.
You want teeth or ring?
Oh, ring, never teeth.
Okay, I got you.
I don't want to fix. I don't want you.
Air Force Academy
Paul
ring.
breaks beers open with his class ring.
Yeah. So, because my teeth are getting old.
So you and I had the same job at one point.
Yep.
When we didn't work together.
Yes.
And we both taught source operations to Iraqis in Taji.
Yes.
When did you do that?
I did. There was a reserve group that came in I think 2003 and put together a skeletal organization. I came in 2004 and they gave me a Marine captain as my number 2, an Army NCO, an Army Junior NCO, a former Iraqi tank commander as a translator, and a former Iraqi American car salesman as a translator. And I traveled the country.
Yeah.
And right after me, they built the academy in Taji. That's when
That's where I taught.
I was the mobile training team that preceded that. Immediately preceded.
I taught a block of instruction on controlling a conversation, and it was excellent. It was some of the best instruction I think I ever did. And I was not an instructor just that one time. I was an instructor. Get this, the military on accident sent me to become a source trainer on source operations right after I'd run sources under the new Army regulations. So I was literally one of, I'll say, I don't know the number, but 20 people in the military that were qualified to actually teach this course. And so I went there and I taught. And that was not by design. That was by accident. And so I taught an excellent blocks on controlling the conversation and everything else. And at the end of this multi-week thing that I was really proud of, the Iraqis looked at me and said, "But Peter, we will hook up their balls to electricity." And shock them.
That's yeah. It was fascinating. I'm really big into cross-cultural communications and cross-cultural fusion cooking, whatever. But to teach intelligence to someone who does not come from, and this is going to sound pretentious, man, but it's a very, very real thing, from someone who does not come from an Aristotelian tradition, which we do whether you want to recognize it or not, is fascinating. The brains just don't work the same. And that's not a disparaging remark.
No, it's
they
just
literally process information differently and such as human rights when you're dealing with a potential source of information. Not everyone has that.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So
it's a real different, and honestly, it's not for us to judge it. It's for us to understand that that's how they do it. How do you help them evolve from that position?
Yeah.
You know?
There are some things, of course, like we can never condone that, never be a part of that, I don't know what to say about that. I know.
Well, let me push you further.
The stuff works.
You can't condone it, but it is your work environment. So
not really. They that was very clear. If you're going to do that shit, make sure I don't hear about it because I'm out of here.
Okay.
Fair
enough.
And they didn't do it when I was there or we were there.
Yeah.
So and besides, our purpose was to teach them something they never had before, and it's something they've been denied because of some quirks in their culture, and that is to analytically analyze, or objectively analyze data that's in front of you. It's that's the gift of this medieval philosopher in the Islamic world called Al-Ghazali. They don't have that, and it's some fascinating historical and cultural norms and influences that impact literally how they see the world. And I found out, and I still find that fantastic and amazing. So
there is a topic that I'm going to tease and not deliver on, but I want the audience to know there's a big thing that maybe one day you and I will talk about. And the moment is perfect right now, but I want to pay the bills on Paella.
Yeah.
And I will give them this, though. If you want to understand source operations in terms of what I do, watch Mr. Brooks with Kevin Costner and that comedian guy. I can't think of his name. Dane Cook.
Yeah.
Watch that, and you will understand 50 to 70% of what I was trying to do and what I had to do on a day-to-day basis in a given situation.
Get into their heads. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you are now, and then what's the official title of what you do? You don't just make paella. And you're not a chef. You're
I am a paellero.
A paellero.
Paellero.
Okay.
So in that context, it's the one who makes paella.
When we got together in 2008, 2009 and trained, we were all away from home, living in extended stays or small apartments. And so and especially me, because this was kind of my role in the class, very seasoned people, but we would get together and cook. And I was like Julie McCoy, I was like the activities coordinator. So I would force us to go out and do karaoke and get together. And you and I got together quite a bit and cooked because our rooms were fairly close together in the same hotel. Yeah. So I know you know how to cook, but talk to us about how you got to the point of being who you are today, like the roots, because that's fascinating.
Food was always a major part of my family. My parents were Maltese, and Malta is a small Mediterranean island, and it's meant to support 8,000 farmers, and it's got 400,000 people on it. It's the second most densely populated country, I believe, second only to Singapore. And food was always a big thing in my family, and preparing. My dad, although an old-fashioned, crotchety, chauvinistic Maltese, he had no problem getting in that kitchen and messing around and cooking, So I developed that appreciation very early on in life, and I've always cooked. But I had an epiphany in 1994, and that is I was stationed in Europe, and a couple of junior officers, they were lieutenants, and I was a major at the time. Hey, sir, they're running the bulls. I bet you would like that. Yeah, I would like that.
Right.
That's kind of a crazy major, right? So I went with them, and we ran the bulls in Pamplona, and we slept in the park, and we shaved in a public fountain, and we drank sangria, and I lived off paella for a week, and absolutely loved it. As I said this so many times, and basically started making it. It's like one of those perfect dishes in the world, and got very, very good at it, especially here when I got in San Diego.
You are very, very good at it. I've tasted it. I've seen it.
It.
And if you guys haven't seen Paul's Paella, go to Instagram and seriously, do yourself a favor and go there, because what you create is not just paella. It's food art.
That's matter of fact. When I was interviewed in Fox 5 News, Heather Lake said that. She said that you can look it up at YouTube. Paul's Paella on Fox 5. This is not food. This is art.
Yeah.
She said that until she tasted it, and then I'm like, wow, that's pretty.
It is food.
No, it's it's a big flat pan. That is a perfect food canvas.
Yeah.
Unfortunately in Spain, they don't spend a whole lot of time decorating. I mean, of course, Valencia, that's no problem. That's not the way you're supposed to do it. Well, fine. But anything that you can make it look better, and you can. Excuse me. And why not? And there's me and there's about 3 other guys on the planet, or actually, the emphasis is always on quality food and the taste, right? But we, after that, using the right ingredients and the right technique, and adjusting that technique as appropriate, we actually spend a lot of time making it as good looking as possible. A rice mandala. And there's me and a guy in Chile, there's a guy in Padua, Italy, and there's a guy in Miami. Nobody in Spain, interesting enough, that are actually doing that.
Well, they're too close to the mothership.
Well, there's a reason. Paella, is not Spanish.
Right.
It's Valencian. It's a part of Spain, and food in Spain is very regional. And in the late 60s, when Franco decided Spain needed a national cuisine, they decided on paella, and everyone started making paella. But unfortunately, people in Madrid, people in Pamplona have really no more tradition of paella than someone from Hoboken, New Jersey, for God's sake. And they made a lot of garbage, and they still do. I mean, you want to get a laugh out of me? Tell me this paella is better than what I had in Spain. Well, it better be, or I just ripped you off, Unless you're in Valencia, most of the paella in Spain, like most of the hamburgers in America, are pretty much nonsense. Mm-hmm.
Any Spain origin has to account for its Arab past.
700 years of, and paella is it. It is. In addition to being the world's most perfect food canvas, it is also a wonderful, if not the best known example of cross-cultural food fusion. Mm-hmm. And so you got...
Are you describing cultural appropriation now?
Yeah, there used to be a time when borrowing new ideas from other people was considered the strength. And in most cultures, even today outside this country, it still is. So, yeah. Cultural appropriation at its finest. Yes. So, that's exactly what it was, which is so frustrating for me in a sense. The paella at its origins it's inherently innovative. It's inherently experimental. The Moors brought rice into Spain. The Moors brought reintroduced saffron into Spain. The big flat pan clearly comes from the large tin-lined copper or brass pans you see throughout North Africa and the Middle East. Okay, this was a something that was borrowed and made better. Moorish technique, Roman steel, and the ingredients that may be available at the time on the Iberian Peninsula. They brought it all together and made something wonderful. And I'm just basically bringing that tradition back. You know, we're here in Southern California. We have access to just about every cuisine from everywhere because the miracle of modern day global logistics. And hey, when I was in the Middle East, I watched them make the antecedent or the what led to paella. And they were adding nuts to it, and they were adding some dried fruit. And I'm going, man, I can do that. So I add cashews and maybe some dried mango and stuff like that. You know, why not lamb?
I have a mango allergy. I need more of it in my life.
Where
I get stronger. The more
I always make a point. You know, when someone orders a paella from me, and 4 days before I actually make it, and the day of, I talk to the owner. Any food allergies or restrictions, you better tell me.
You better tell me. It's about to be too late.
Because you cannot assume I won't put it in there if I saw something neat in the store, you know. So
Michael Jordan said that his dream dunk was free throw line 360 dunk. Nothing that he ever pulled off. What's your dream paella?
Oh, my dream paella is the next one.
Nice.
Yeah, my motto is every paella better than the last.
Yeah.
And of course, that's one of those goals you really can't achieve.
Right.
But it's not meant to. It's one of those things that maintains my standards.
Yeah.
I'm going to, this was a great paella I made for you. And by the way, if you come to the next one, I hope it's better.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. There's so much. And the thing is, though, the big flat surface, all these various ingredients that we have, access to here in the United States, Southern California particularly, I can spend the rest of my life bettering myself.
Yeah.
I get asked all the time, why don't you compete in some of these paella festivals or contests they have here? Like, I do compete. Every single paella I make is a competition with every one I've ever made.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, what I'm doing at this point is so different. Who's going to judge me anyway?
Right.
So
only God can judge me now. Yeah. And I guess to my friends internationally who, because I've got a big audience in Germany and the cats out there in New Zealand and all these different people. I don't know if you guys have paella, but it is truly a special dish because you could throw rabbit in there.
You can throw anything in there.
Quail.
You can throw anything.
Yes.
Well, it just reminded me of some hunting buddies. I go to a trip in Brawley, California, where they have Eurasian doves and plentiful, and it's an invasive species all year long. But they will go ahead and knock out doves for 2 days, and I'll have a 31-inch pan in the field. Bring me your product, and I'll sit there and I'll cook a paella there on the spot. And it's become a Palm Sunday tradition now.
Nice.
So,
well, you do love Jesus.
Yes, Jesus loves me. That's why I'm making paella. So,
hey, tell us more about Malta because it's a fascinating place. Part Italian, part Arab, part English.
Yeah, they're the only Semites of Europe, actually. And I sound distant. I'm reaching for another beer. How you doing?
I can do another beer.
Okay, let me open this one here. Malta's a small Mediterranean island, 9 by 19 miles, about just under 400,000 people. They are part of the EU, but they speak a Semitic language, Maltese, which is really, best way to describe it, it's Arabic with an Italian accent.
Do you speak it?
I can swear.
Okay.
Yeah, my parents were really kind of conscious when I was a youngster of making sure I didn't grow up with an accent. That was kind of a thing back in the 60s. So they did not teach me the language, fortunately. So, here we go. So, I'm opening these beer bottles with my finger, so ring finger. So if you hear me grunting, that's what that is. So,
cheers, by the way.
Oh, salute, brother. Salute. This is great. You got to come down here and talk to me more often.
Yeah.
So, but, interesting island. And my father was born there. My mother actually was born in Canada, but to Maltese parents. Well, my upbringing was definitely, I want to say Maltese American, although I hate hyphens, actually. So, but that's definitely had a big impact on who I am and how I see the world, and definitely how I approach food.
How do you see the world?
It's, I kind of call myself, I'm a Roman Catholic agnostic. So, I'm a Christian. I have faith in God and grace. But at the same time, I believe, Maltese being skeptical of all things pertaining to the church, because that's who we are, I question everything, And And I really think, to be honest, I think the Pope's an agnostic too, to be honest, because you really can't know God, but you got faith in God.
Yeah.
So I know that's getting controversial there,
Yeah.
but my belief is the more you question things, the more you come to learn that thing, the more you come to the truth. So as one who has faith in God, I know by questioning God, eventually we will find out he exists and he's there. So,
And the institutions have to exist to create some sanity in the chaos of faith.
there needs to be structure, I
Yeah.
guess. Well, some people say no, there doesn't, but I never was a big fan of anarchy. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to reconcile that, and I'm not trying to get philosophical here in the hot tub.
So-
But, when someone like John Calvin or John Knox, those guys who challenge that, and they're like, hey, I actually read, the original text, and it doesn't say what you guys said. Hey, you got a problem. Now you got a disagreement. That disagreement was hundreds of years ago for us.
yeah.
If you take, and I'm making a jump here, ready? If you take Islam and you put it on the same timeline, they're kind of in the middle of that.
No, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
In the West, we
I
had...
should say the words out loud because you and I know, but let me. So, John Calvin and his friends who all sort of challenged the Catholic Church, appropriately so because they actually read the text. They said, hey, this doesn't jive with what you're teaching us. There's things that don't match up. What are we going to do about this? And that started a schism between the Catholic Church and the Protestants. So right now it seems like in history, Islam, because Islam is about as old as Christianity was at this point, they're having their sort of schism in a lot of ways.
But they're missing something big.
Okay.
Islam had Al-Ghazali. We had Thomas Aquinas.
Right.
And few people are going to know Thomas Aquinas. So what? Well, he's a very important guy in our culture in that he made an accommodation between the church and Greek thought, namely Aristotle, which the Jews had, by the way, done many, many years earlier with the aspect of the rabbi, which is essentially the Jewish version of a Greek scholar. No, sorry. But Al-Ghazali is probably the most influential man you'll never hear of in history. I would, based on what's going on today, I would probably rank him up right there with Newton as being one of the most influential men of history who you've never heard of.
Yeah.
He was a medieval Islamic scholar, and he had a problem with Greek thought or rationalism at the time, especially during the the Baghdad Caliphate, the Abbasids, where the religious elite of Islam were really more like rabbis. They were scholars, and they loved Greek thought and Greek rationalism. And Al-Ghazali had a problem with that, okay? And he says, you know what? Greek thought's not good. And so what he decided to do, I'm going to write a book on Greek thought so you know what it is. And then I'm going to write a book, okay, telling you why it's wrong. The thing that's interesting, his book on what it wasn't just a cursory flip, just the main ideas. It was good. This guy understood the Greeks. And it was so good that when it was translated into Latin, it became one of the most influential books that really launched Europe into the area of the Renaissance, launching us into the modern era. So we have a great debt to this guy, Al-Ghazali, and we know nothing about him. Problem is, he wrote it for a purpose. Give him credit for it because it was well done. But he wrote it for a purpose, and that is so he can criticize it afterwards. And then he wrote another book, the Critique of Greek Thought. I'm paraphrasing that, actually. And that actually is what the Islamic world focused on. And as a result, a very direct result, or at least very influential, they shifted from their rationalism, which they admired so much from the Greeks, and shifted to I'll call it irrationalism. I know that's going to sound pejorative. Not necessarily. They don't think of it. Sunnis or Sufis don't think of it.
Right.
But it was. And when you look at pre-Ghazali, you have Islamic or Arab thought that was just very innovative. They would take an idea from the Greeks and expand on it and do these wonderful things. But after Al-Ghazali, no, it's gone. It would be kind of like if a more fundamentalist Western philosopher had the influence on Christianity that Aquinas had. And that's really, intellectually, that is when decline began in Islam. So it's funny, he's kind of lauded as a great hero in in the Muslim world, although he did a lot of damage, in my opinion, to Islam. And he's unknown to the West, but he's one of our founding fathers. That's why I consider him as like, at least, if not, he's definitely the most intriguing human of history, you know. But in many ways, I think you make an argument, the most influential.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And you're right. Reading about that guy, the little bit I have read, it's tough to grasp his impact because it's everywhere.
No, it is.
And so you're trying to sort out water from water, and it gets really tough. Like, yeah, this is blue water, and I can say, oh wait, hold on, now it's purple. You know, and it's really tough because of he is indelible in terms of Western civilization, but he's also invisible. You're right.
No, we don't know about him, which again I find it fascinating. He's largely responsible for the West's rapid advance.
When I talk
and he's largely responsible for Islam's decline. I mean, that's pretty damn influential. So
when I talk about how to work effectively overseas and with cross culture, like you have to deal with the infrastructure of the mind, and you have to understand his impact. And I won't profess to have a mastery of it.
I can give you an example of it.
Let's hear it.
Process of information. And he actually wrote this, okay? Deductive reasoning, okay? And this is a criticism from his perspective.
Okay.
Of course, I won't come across that to one who's brought up in a Western tradition as you were. So he was saying, well, the Greeks would say this about cause and effect. If A, then B. If B, then C. A, therefore C. That's how the Greeks think. No. The way it really is, if A, then B, that's because of God's will.
Yeah.
If B, then C, that's because of God's will. If A, therefore C, that's because of God's will. Now, that sounds just like, how many angels you put on the pin of the head of a pin. But you know what? It's real. And I saw that play out in real life in Iraq.
Did. Give me your example.
Yeah. Oh, man, I love this. Now, it wasn't me that did this. It was my number two, my Marine, who actually was teaching time wheels to Iraqi intel NCOs and officers, okay? And, a time wheel is a bunch of concentric circles. And on the concentric circles, you will place the day of the week, okay? And around the perimeter, you will place times. I might have that backwards, actually. But you got the idea, right?
Yeah, right.
So what you do, we're doing Baghdad. We're going to plot IED events, okay? Improvised explosive device in Baghdad. So on Monday at 7 o'clock, one happened here, okay? Boom, put a little dot there, okay? On Monday at 10 o'clock, one here, okay? On Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, 7, whatever. You start plotting those. And after a week or two, you start seeing patterns. And it tells you stuff. This is when you most likely get IED attacks.
Right.
This, and these are days that are most prevalent if you do it several weeks at a time. So we did this for a couple of weeks. Where my number two did this. I'm trying to remember his name. I think it's Chad. Oh, I shouldn't mention names, should I?
Let's call him Chris.
Let's call him Chris. Anyway,
okay.
Chris was telling us, sir, we had him compile all this information. And I was like, well, how did it come out? I have no idea. He says, what do you mean? Well, on the end of the exercise, and we told them to put the stuff together, they showed me everything on the last day. I said, no. You have to put it together from the whole, it was a week or two. I forgot what exactly. Well, we can't do that. And I was like, why? Well, we threw all that away. What good is it? And it's like, the fact that there was an IED today at 7 o'clock is because God willed there to be an IED today at 7. And if it's at 7 o'clock again next week, that's what God wanted. It's like, It's like, wow, mind-blowing, okay? Really saw that play out, and it was, like, fascinating. Now, to be fair to the Arabs, by the way, they have another way of approaching information that's kind of... They have an ability to think outside the box that no Western has typically.
Yeah, well, they're in a different box.
Well, no, they have they have a holistic view of things.
Yeah.
If you leave them on their own, they're going to come up with answers you never would have came across.
Right. Yeah.
And but to try to teach them Aristotelian logic without actually and thinking that everyone understands that inherently. No. It was ingrained in us over 2,000 years and would not have been if not for St. Thomas Aquinas. And it would have been in the Arab mind if not for Al-Ghazali. That stuff is huge.
Yeah, it is huge.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is a lot of what we have, if Greek thought is better than Arab thought, and I'm just saying...
Context. It's context.
Well, we are really bad at remembering that the Greeks figured a lot of the shit out that we're dealing with right now. Not figured out, identified a lot of the things that we deal with today.
Oh my God! Yeah.
You know? So we're trying to solve problems that weren't solvable 2,000 years ago, and we're not really.
Sometimes we come up with the same answers.
Well, that too.
Some of the stuff
same
was
shitty answers.
Some of the stuff was worked out.
Yeah.
I was fascinating. Will and Ariel Durant, Story of Civilization.
Oh boy!
But when they were talking
Hold on,
about,
let me say this: if you guys don't know Will Durant, Will with one L, then you need to stop, look up Will Durant, read his 100 books, and then you can start to have this conversation at a higher level because it's an education. Will Durant is one of our gifts to humanity.
He's fascinating.
I'm going to shut up now.
He's fascinating. Understand, however, anything from his work, The Story of Civilization, is not considered valid as a.
And a lot of the science is
it's because it's one guy.
Yeah.
One guy trying to cover that much history, mistakes are made.
Right.
But one guy, and actually his wife too, Ariel.
Yeah.
Okay. One thought, putting that together into a story. There's a congruity there that you can't get anywhere else, and it's 11 volumes. They average about 800 to 900 pages a volume, and it's a beautiful read. It's old as hell, but it's exceptionally well done. Unfortunately, there's some stuff that's wrong. We just have more information now. So,
Well, it's the same thing with the science from his 100 books. They're old books, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a story.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful story.
You should absolutely know Will Durant's work.
Well
Yeah.
written. Well.
Yeah.
So,
All right. So
I got sidetracked. What was I talking about?
it's these damn beers.
Not damn beers.
We were going to talk about Greek thought.
Yeah.
And what they have or hadn't figured out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the fascinating thing, reading Will Durant and some of this, he's got some actual source material. Some of the things the Greeks were talking, they were dealing with issues, okay, that we're dealing with now, and with no more clarity today than they had back then. For example, the role of women in society. Sexuality, the proper role between a man and his neighbor, a man and his family, and a man and his state. And some of the same questions, they were asking the exact same questions. And some of their answers, hell of a lot better than the stuff I'm seeing now, quite frankly. But these people spend a lot of time thinking and discussing and talking, as opposed to getting your opinion from the boob tube. Or your Twitter, or your let's face it, how many of us actually form an actual opinion? We usually take the opinion of someone else we admire.
Just stop at the headline and just start talking.
Yeah. So, but they would discuss it. Everyone discussed it.
I'm 4 beers in. I'm going to tap your glass with you, and I'm going to let you ask me a question.
Okay.
Close out.
What's the capital of Chad?
Chad?
N'Djamena. So the reason for that, I was in an Intel school. When you're giving a presentation, you're graded on the presentation. One of the slots was with how do you answer questions.
Yeah.
Of course, everyone's afraid of screwing over their fellow student, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, the question always has to be asked, and it's always, what is the capital of Chad? It's N'Djamena, 10 points. So, what is the capital of Chad?
N'Djamena.
10 points,
What are the 5
PD.
countries that border Lake Chad?
Oh,
That's
I
a
don't.
motherfucker of a question.
Yeah, I won't even pretend to know. Of course, I wasn't in I spent time in Africa, by the way.
Right.
I don't know Africa worth shit. So,
But you get a real question, though. What's your real?
Oh, real question here. Oh man, I had one for you too. It pertained to a previous podcast you had.
Please.
But I mean, we were talking to the good professor down there in UC.
Andrew Friedman.
Yeah. And he was talking about what spooky
motion at a distance.
Spooky motion at a distance. And he made the comment that it's not really a function of. The interesting thing about it is not so much that if true, it shows that something can travel faster than the speed of light. And I gotta be honest, I looked it up afterwards, and that's one of the fascinating things about that. What did I miss? Is it because he thinks it's something else, or?
So first off, it's supposed to be challenging.
Yeah.
And this is where Bohr and Einstein disagreed a lot. So Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. And again, I'm pretty much out of my depth already. He called it that.
Both of us, brother. Yeah.
To kind of mock what Bohr was saying. He's like, okay, so spooky action at a distance.
Yeah.
Say it like that.
Yeah.
And basically what we're saying is that, and this is for the audience, if I was to have 2 dominoes and they are a foot apart, and I hit one domino, if the other domino fell simultaneously, and I don't mean speed of light, I mean simultaneously,
at the same time,
from the same force
Yes.
of my finger hitting one,
Yeah.
that's what they're trying to account for.
Yeah.
And so how does that happen? And the information, and we got into that whole free choice thing, and you guys got to listen to this episode with Andrew Friedman. So if my free choice was to hit one or the other domino can't possibly know that. It's not even sentient, first of all.
Yeah.
But it does
Not
happen.
of it simultaneous, not exact same time.
Right,
So-
right. So spooky action at a distance is, why are these things connected if light is the limit in terms of
Or
information?
the speed of light.
Right.
The information
Yeah.
can't travel. Yeah, okay.
So
And
when he was-
Andy, the professor
Andy.
we're talking to,
Yeah.
he's more inclined towards Einstein's perspective that it.
I think what we're doing in his work, like I'm doing it, but I think what they're working on is trying to close the loopholes that Einstein brought up, and we've got them to a ridiculous point, but we can't close them.
Yeah.
So free thought. And I don't remember all three elements, but the three elements that they, in terms of Bell, who's another doctor, Bell said if these three things comprise nature, and one was free choice, one was locality, and I can't remember the other one right now. Then if the experiment, and that's very strong, that's Einstein's nature, right? He basically created like these three things. So the experiment that Andy and his partner did, the Bell test, when they proved that spooky action at a distance is a real thing, now you have to sacrifice free choice, locality, or this other very common thing that I wish I could remember right now, but I can't because I'm in a hot tub full of beer. But that's what he's saying is like, so we're attacking at this point free choice and locality. That it's not proximity to the other domino that matters, or not completely. And somehow, and so let's the audience can understand. I'm trying to explain something very complex. Andy and his buddies took two galaxies that are billions of light years away, and they are billions of light years apart, and they used those as random number generators. And they aimed them at collectors on the ground that are, let's call it half a mile apart. And then they would send information between those two systems. And the random number generators would generate a number between 0 and 1. And
They found a correlation.
There's a correlation above probability, which would be 50-50-ish.
Yeah.
And then they kept running it, and it kept coming up at a higher rate. So there is a connection, which means that light speed or something is in doubt now. So free choice, which
micro wormhole, I don't know.
Yeah,
so,
something, right? Like, and so could two galaxies 13 billion years ago pre-plan the sequence?
No.
Well, it's highly unlikely, and that's what they're saying. So free choice is now in doubt. Like, do we actually have free choice?
Yeah,
was one of the things they were bringing into doubt.
Everything's okay. No, I just find
it's
important to me.
Yeah.
I have my own philosophy of existence and afterlife and whatnot, and that's a big question,
Yeah,
so
it is a big question,
but
and it's one maybe
we can get Andy here in a hot tub sometime.
Let's do it.
Do it.